dealing with the sentence that an excuse brings. And this is just going to be the first of many free webinars we're going to do bi-weekly on Monday nights, just to really encourage, motivate, and to equip. I intended this to be for the men, but I have quite a few women hitting me up. You know, these fellas, the women are really trying to do their best to go to a higher level. So you really got to meet them, because I'm saying this for men, and they're still saying, I want to tune in and check out what it is that's being taught. So for the fellas who are on there and for the women who are on, just thank you so much for tuning in. Now let's dig right into this. So we're dealing with delayed greatness. And to be delayed means to postpone or to defer. And greatness is the quality of being great, distinguished, or eminent. So in this series, we're going to explore what causes us to postpone our qualities of being great, distinguished, or eminent. What are the things that we are doing? What are the ways that we are thinking? What are some of our actions that are going on in our life that is postponing the greatness that is really inside of us? And the first thing you need to grab a hold of is every man has the potential to be great. They just need the right tools, and that's what Building Better Men is all about. It's all about building men up and giving them the tools that they need in order to reach that greatness that's inside of them. So we got to understand, firstly, that there is greatness in me. God created me great. There's something inside of me that is great that I need to tap into. And you have the potential, but the thing about potential is something that is yet to be seen. Potential is not something that is there right now, but it's something that is dormant. I know, guys, we all know about NFL or the NBA draft, where the owners will draft somebody because of their potential, not because of what they've done in college, not because of the skills that they've shown they already had, but they draft them according to a potential that they see that they might have later on down the line. And so that's what I'm speaking to you today about, understanding that you have that greatness inside of you. You have that potential. Now, I might not be able to see it right now. You might not be able to see it right now. The world might not be able to see your potential. But just because they can't see it, because potential you can't see, just because it's not seen, just because your greatness is not seen, does not mean that you are not great. And we're going to deal with why you have delayed your greatness. And tonight we're dealing with the sentence an excuse brings. So the first cause we're dealing with tonight is that excuses. So every excuse as to why you can't, it adds days to why you won't. So every time you give an excuse as to why you can't do something, that's another day or another week or another month or another year why you will not ever be able to do what it is that you aspire to do or dream to do or what you have the potential to do, solely because of your excuse. And that's why we're dealing with the sentence that it brings. Because when you give that excuse, it adds time onto you being stuck where you are, onto you being imprisoned in that thinking, into you being imprisoned into that life, into you being imprisoned to being stuck where you are. Now me, I'm going to be transparent as always. I'm going to let you know what my excuse was and what my aspirations were. I wanted to go back to school. I wanted to go to college, and I wanted to get a degree because I wanted to be a financial analyst, and I knew they made all this money, so I'm like, you know what, this is what I want to do because I'm already a numbers guy. But I was around 25, 26 years old, and my excuse was, I'm too old. I'm too old to go back to college. I'm 25, 26. Most people are graduating at 20. How I'm going to start going to school at 25 when I graduated high school at 17? I should have been in school. So I was thinking that I'm too old. And then a year went by, and I'm still thinking I'm even older. Then another year went by, and I'm like, I'm really too old now. But then I had to catch myself. 2 years done went by. You could have had your associates already if you already started. I had to get over that excuse that I had. In order for me to not live life without achieving the goal that I really wanted, I had to revisit my excuse. I had to revisit and look at what was this real excuse, this thing that was keeping me from stepping out and going back to school? I had to go back and look at it. And an excuse is a reason or explanation put forward to defend or justify a fault or offense. It's a reason that you throw out there to justify the fact that you know you're wrong. The reason that you throw out there to justify the fact that you know you should be doing better, that you should be living at a higher level, but you throw a reason out there, and that is an excuse. So revisiting your excuse is like putting in an appeal in the court system, because this is what we're dealing with here, the sentence that it brings. So revisiting your excuse is putting in an appeal. And understand this, every excuse gives you a life sentence. Until you revisit it, you've accepted that you can't. You will never, ever go higher. Your life will never, ever change as long as you're holding on to an excuse. So every excuse is going to give you a life sentence unless you appeal it. So how does an appeal work? Well, first, you have to put in your appeal, or you have to want to appeal what's going on, but you have to present new evidence that wasn't brought up in the first trial. This is where you can't go to an appeal with the same old evidence. You got to have some brand new evidence. So this is what I'm going to help you with tonight. I'm going to help you with the evidence so you can appeal this excuse that you've had that have caused you to have a life sentence of mediocrity. First, what is the excuse that needs to be revisited? Now, how do we find that? Okay. If I told you right now, I could make your life exactly how you want it to be. However you dream, however big the dream is, I can make your life exactly what it is that you dream of. How would you see your life? I need you to imagine that right now. Imagine how you will see yourself if I could just do it like a genie, just right now. I could just make your life that. Now here's the excuse. Why isn't your life like that? What is it? Whatever you just imagine, I need you to write that down or keep that in your mind. But figure out, what's the excuse? Why is that not your life? What is the reason behind it? Why aren't you attaining what it is that you have dreamed of just right now, or that you have already dreamed of, but I just brought it back to your remembrance? What is the excuse that you have as to why you cannot attain that? As to why that cannot be your reality? Whatever you're thinking right now, whatever you might be jotting down right now as far as the reasons why I can't get to this, the reasons why I can't do X, Y, Z, the reason why I will never be such and such, that is the excuse that needs an appeal. And we got to attack exactly what it is, because when you're filing an appeal, you're filing a motion according to something that is specific that you're trying to get your case overturned with, but you got to have the specifics. So right now we need to know exactly what that excuse is, and you know it because you know what it requires to get to that dream, and you know that you're not doing what it requires, and it's a reason why not. So the first thing you got to do is identify that excuse. Now, after we identified the excuse, here comes the real appeal process. Can you fully support your excuse? Is there a ton of evidence beyond a shadow of reasonable doubt, as we do in reasonable doubt, that your excuse is valid? Now, if you're dreaming of playing in the NBA, but you're paralyzed, you have a valid excuse. That's a valid excuse. There's evidence that supports that. There's no way that you can have that dream because you don't have legs, or you don't have the ability of using your legs. But if you don't, you just got to practice and you just got to work hard. So whatever that dream is, the reason or the excuse that you have as to why you can't attain that, is there any evidence that supports why you're saying that you can't do it? Is there absolutely no way around your excuse? So you're saying, well, the reason I can't do this is because of blank. Is there absolutely no reason around or no way that you could do it with the same? Is if there's a slight chance that you can achieve the goal, then the excuse is not fully supported. Going back to myself, I'm too old. That was not fully supported once I put my appeal in and once I revisited that excuse. For one, there were people older than me that have went back to college and graduated. Another thing, I still needed a degree to live the life that I want. Then another thing, I still had the young enough mind to retain what was needed to graduate. So my excuse wasn't valid. It did not have anything that was supporting my excuse. So now once I revisited or once I put my appeal in, because if I would not have, I would have had a life sentence of never getting my college degree, which to God be the glory, I actually went back and did get. But I would have had a life sentence of mediocrity. I would have had a life sentence of living under what I knew I should have been doing had I not revisited my excuse. And once I revisited the excuse, I realized that it was not valid. And I had to overturn my conviction and move forward with what it was I knew that I should be doing. So now, next thing. What's normally our number one excuse as to why we can't achieve our dreams? I don't have the money. I don't have enough money to start it up, because in order to do what I need to do, I need this amount of money, and I only got this amount of money. And that's just going to be our excuse over and over and over again. Now, question. What are you doing with your money? Are you wasting money on things that you don't need, like expensive clothes, partying, or even living in a place that you don't need? You're renting outside of your means. You're paying $1,200 of rent when you could be living in a one-bedroom. If you're chasing your dream, it doesn't matter where you live now, because later you'll be able to live in your dream house. But we are mismanaging our money. Now, you can start saving now and have a plan that in 3 to 5 years, you'll have enough money to start whatever you want to start. So again, your excuse isn't valid. If you put together a good enough business plan, you can get investors. Again, your excuse is not valid. Our excuses are not valid. They will not stand up in a court of law if our excuse was on trial. And right now, your excuse is on trial, and I'm trying to help you to see where your excuse, it needs to be overturned for you to step into that next level of life, because you will no longer be sentenced to a life of mediocrity simply because of your excuse. Now, the next thing here, and I like this, the pros and cons of your excuse. What is the worst thing that can happen if you allow your excuse to keep you from moving forward? The worst thing that can happen is you'll stay stuck where you are and continually think about what you could have been. That's the worst thing that can happen if you allow your excuse to keep you from moving. Now, what's the best thing that can happen if you allow your excuse to keep you from moving? Well, the best thing is the same as the worst. So your pros and your cons are the same thing when you're dealing with excuses. The best thing that can happen if you allow your excuse to keep you from moving is that you'll stay where you are and you'll continually think about what you could have been. Now, what's the worst thing that can happen if you pursue your dream? If you actually take that chance, if you actually step out and start, if you actually begin to move, what's the worst thing that can happen? The worst thing that can happen is that you will fail and end up living the life you're already going to live for the rest of your life anyway if you don't move. So the worst thing, if you do try, is that you'll live the life that you're already living. So if you're already living it, the worst thing is not even bad when you're dealing with stepping out on the actual dream, because you're already living the worst thing or the worst part of that. So now, what is the best thing that can happen if you actually step out on the dream? And the best thing is you will end up exactly how you dreamed of. What are the pros and cons? Do they even match? Is the reward worth the risk? Yes. Because if you don't step out, you are putting yourself right in position to live the worst, when if you do step out, you have a chance living the best. But here's the thing. The chances of you failing and living exactly how you would if you never tried to step out is slim to none. Because even in failing, you will end up better than you did if you didn't move. Even in failing, you will end up better off than you would if you have not ever moved. Now this brings us to the next question. Are you thinking in terms of all or nothing? Are you thinking of either I'm going to get it all or I'm going to have nothing? Are you thinking that it's only two outcomes? Just two outcomes. There's nothing in between. We gain it all or we lose it all. The problem with this thinking is if you already have a pessimistic mind, a 50-50 chance is too big of a bargain to get you to move. So if you're saying I got a 50-50 chance of just being stuck, so I might as well just stay here, get comfortable with where I am. That way I don't have to keep looking forward to something better and being disappointed. I can just stay stuck here and get comfortable with where I am. That 50-50 chance is just not good enough for a pessimist mind, because if I start to move and I don't get it, I'm going to feel so much more hurt than if I did if I just stayed right here. But let's say this. Let's say it's actually 20 different outcomes from 1, losing it all, to 20, gaining it all. And 10 is gaining half of it all. This gives you a 5% chance of losing it all and a 95% chance of gaining something. It gives you a 95% chance of gaining something. And understand, gaining is not always money. You might gain some much needed knowledge to help you restructure your idea so the next time you can go from that 2 all the way to the 20. But the truth is, there are way more than 20 potential outcomes, which makes your chances even greater. It's even greater than a 95% chance of gaining something. It's about a 99.9% chance of you gaining something. Now, I'm not saying you're going to get the exact dream. I'm not saying that you're going to get the millions. But what I'm saying is you will get more than what you have if you don't do something. So I know that 50-50 chance was kind of too big because you were thinking all or nothing. We got to stop thinking all or nothing and understand there is a middle ground in between there. If I begin to move somewhat, I'm going to encounter something, and once you begin to move, you never know who you'll run into. Once you begin to start that business or move forward on that idea or begin to change your way of thinking or your way of living, you have no idea what you'll end up bumping into, and just like that, your whole life could change. But if you don't move, you'll never encounter what it is that was getting ready to take you to the next level. Next, are you confusing your opinions and what you hear with facts? Is your excuse based off uneducated conclusions, or if your excuse is based off uneducated conclusions, then your excuse is hearsay and it's inadmissible in the court of law. If your excuse is because I heard somebody say this and somebody told me that, we know that's not admissible in the court of law. You can't convict somebody over hearsay. It has to be concrete evidence to keep you behind bars. If you were arrested over hearsay, you'll be able to get an appeal and get your life sentence returned over because hearsay is not concrete evidence. So now think about your excuse. The reason why you can't attain that dream, the reason why you can't go further. Is it your opinion? Is it something that you heard? Or is it something that you really sat down and researched? You did your homework and you got all the facts about where you want to go, and all the facts show you that you have no way at all to do it. If you did not do that, your excuse is not valid. Your excuse is built off of your uneducated opinions, and I apologize for calling you uneducated, but that's what this is. Your excuse is built off of an uneducated opinion or the hearsay of somebody else who's given their uneducated opinion because you did not take the time to do the homework, to do the research, to figure out what the facts are. Because once you figure out what the facts are, then you'll be able to see how you do have the ability to do what it is that you aspire to do, that you do have the capability, that you do have the mindset, that you do have the talent, that you do have what it takes to get you there if you only saw the facts. But since you're not seeing the facts, you're allowing your excuse to keep you stagnant, and it's keeping you stagnant based off of misinformation. But once you get the right information, this is what I challenge you today right now to do. Begin to get the right information and watch that information show you how not only do you have the talent to do it, but you're more than qualified to be able to attain that dream. And last but not least here, is your excuse an exaggeration? Why I didn't initially go to college was because of this. At 12 years old, I was very smart and very dumb at the same time. I read a report on how many jobs had opened up. This was during the Bill Clinton era. He opened up so many jobs for people. And then I looked up to see how many people graduated college every year. And then the number of new jobs to college graduates didn't line up. So then I start to think, well, most of these jobs probably don't even require a college degree. So now the number of jobs that require a college degree was even smaller than the original number to the amount of graduates every year. So now I start to think about, well, how many leftover graduates from each year to the next year to the next year? It doesn't line up to the amount of jobs. So at 12 years old, I made the decision based off of this ratio that says it doesn't make sense to go to college. Because if I go to college, I can't get a job because there are more people that need jobs than there are jobs. That was a total exaggeration. It didn't show me, those numbers didn't show me what people went to school for, because sometimes you can choose the wrong profession when there are not a lot of jobs. They choose things where there's no demand. And it didn't show me that. What it really didn't show me is that if I don't have the college degree, I'm still going into the same field of jobs that I'm trying to get, but yet I'm doing it without my degree that will put me ahead of somebody else. So I completely exaggerated my excuse. So now, this is how crazy it is. At 26, I'm believing something that I thought up when I was 12. 12 years old. 14 years later, my decision making is based off of a ratio that I did when I was 12 years old. Completely exaggerated. So is your excuse exaggerated? Is the reason why you can't do that something that you have completely magnified and it's just so much bigger, or it's so much smaller than it actually, so much smaller than you make it out to be, where you've made this thing to be something that's unsurmountable when the truth of the matter is it's not that big at all. You just totally exaggerated everything to make yourself feel comfortable staying where you are. Because as long as your excuse feels good enough to you, it's a coping mechanism that you develop in order to keep you from moving forward or feel comfortable being stagnant. So now you'll say, well, I'm cool where I am because I can't do any better. I can't, I just can't do it. So I'm just going to stay right here. I'm gonna be cool. I'm cool with where I'm at. You like Martin, I'm gonna be the best buffer in the world, Gina. And you just stay there. Now, there's nothing wrong with being a buffer, but is that where you really want to stay? Do you really want to stay where you are? Or do you want to revisit those excuses and overturn that life sentence that excuse has caused you to live in? Because right now, if you are still living under your potential, if you are still living according to what that excuse says, then you are serving a life sentence to your excuse. With no parole. Nobody's going to let you out. They're not going to open the door and put you in your dream. You are serving a life sentence all because of your excuse. But I hope what we've dealt with tonight has caused you to revisit your excuse, to reopen your case, to appeal that life sentence that your excuse has given you. And that after you review it and watch this over again and write this stuff down and really sit down. Write that excuse down. Write it down. Write it down. And then go through everything that I talked about and see if your excuse holds up. And if your excuse does not hold up, then you have to overturn that life sentence. But you'll only overturn that life sentence by actually stepping out and doing what it is that you have already aspired to do. No more delayed greatness. Your greatness is time for your greatness to arrive. But it will only arrive when you revisit that excuse and overturn the sentence that your excuse has brought you. Again, I thank you all for tuning in. I hope that this has been a blessing to you. I hope that this has been something that is inspiring, motivational, and equipping you with some tools for you to actually sit down and think about and cause you to really usher yourself into the next level and get rid of some of that pessimistic thinking, get rid of all of those things that when you really sit down and look at it that don't make any sense. Get rid of all of the hearsay. Get rid of all of the things that you thought that you did not study on. It's just something that you've heard. It's just something that you've always done. It's something that you've always thought. But you get rid of those things. That way you become excuse-free. And once you become excuse-free, then you'll be able to take over the world. You'll be able to do everything that you imagine to do. It's no difference between you and the person that's actually doing it. Well, there is one difference. They didn't have an excuse. They did it. So again, thank you all for tuning in. Check out everything on the website. Take the pledge. Order your t-shirt. I dare to want more. This is more than just a t-shirt. This is a pledge that we're taking to say that I want more. I will not stay where I am, but I dare to want more out of my life. I don't care what other people are saying about where I should be or where I should stay because of where I'm from. I got to stay in this social class. No. I dare to want more. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll be back in 2 weeks, same time, same channel. Thank you.